Hi, Mr. Richie Faulkner. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. It's a great honor to me talking to you. You know, I am a great fan of your work, especially on Judas Priest. And how can I say you are the guy who helped the band carry on? It's so simple. Yeah, great.
Well, I'm just I'm just happy to be there, man. It's a legendary band. I'm a fan of the band too, It's a legendary band, legendary fans, legendary songs. I'm just lucky to be there and happy to be up there flying the flag for heavy metal and talking to you today, man.
Great, great. We are both on it. Thank you. And let's talk about the Elegant Weapons and its debut record. It's a great album. I really, really like it so much. But my first question is, uh, it's about the reason why the guy who's helping Judas Priest keeping the flame burning, why uh, this guy decided to start a new band.
Well, it's a long answer, but when I joined Judas Priest, as you remember, um, it was it was the farewell tour. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be. Luckily, it wasn't. Luckily, it became. We're here talking about Priest. We're putting out another album maybe. Uh, we Priest are still around, and the world is a better place for it. But at the time, I had to think about what I was going to do after Priest because I thought it was going to be the last tour. So the thought was in my mind back then. Um, but it took a few more years to get something together. The band carried on. We did, a couple more albums, a few more tours, and I'm part of Judas Priest. So when the pandemic happened, I had some time to get some songs together that I've been working on, uh, and write some new songs and see if I had anything that could stand on its own. Could I? Did I have a few songs? Did I have an EP? Did I have an album? Did I have a band that I could put together? Something that maybe could continue on after Priest, if that ever happened. I mean, Priest will live on for 500 years. The legacy of Judas Priest will never die. But the reality is, one day they might call it a day. And did I have something musically that could continue on if that ever happened? So that's what I did. I put some songs together, recorded them, and put out a record. And this year we've been lucky, really, because Priest have been off the road. We haven't done anything this year with Judas Priest, so I've been able to put out the record. The record comes out on Friday, and do some live dates. And so yeah, that's what I chose. That's what I decided to do, really.
Great. And talk about the debut album from Elegant Weapons. It's called The Horns for the Hell. Hell. And since the first song, Dead Man Walking, um, already begins as a statement. The guitars show the best of traditional heavy metal, but the whole music has a mood of British classic rock. You know, it sounds to me something inspired by Uriah Heep and stuff like that. Is it intentional?
It's who I am. It's who I am as a guitar player. It's what I'm inspired by. It's what I grew up with. I was initially, when I was young, I was introduced to Jimi Hendrix and Thin Lizzy and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and bands like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Metallica, that sort of stuff. It's undeniable who I am as a guitar player and a musician. I think to do anything different would be disingenuous. So it's all my influences coming through, and they're coming through on the guitar. That's the music that inspires me. um and I wanted a record that sounded relevant in 2023, but I also wanted those influences to be loud and proud, as they've always been. The guitar players that I like. If you listen to the way I play guitar, the guitar players that I listen to. You know, it's undeniable. And the music that I create is the same. You know what those influences are. So I wanted those influences to shine through in the music, but also sound like a record in 2023. So that's what the record sounds like.
Okay, and I like it so much. As
Thank
I
you very much,
said,
man. Thank you.
it's a great album. And Richie, please don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. But when I listed it to the to two first songs, um, "Dead Man Walking" and the following, "Do or Die," I thought something like that. Wow, if these riffs didn't fit for Judas Priest, what did Rich Faulkner do for the Priest album? You know what I mean? They are awesome. They are killer riffs, and my curiosity is: did you take these riffs for the guys from Judas Priest? Did you show it for them?
No, none of this stuff was written and shown to Priest. None of this stuff is stuff that didn't make the Priest record. So the Priest record that we're working on at the moment, we'd written all of that. So we'd written the demos, we'd written the songs. So creatively, I could draw a line underneath that, and so anything that I came up with, I could then give to the Elegant Weapons record. You know, otherwise you have to kind of you have to have a point where you sign off, because otherwise everything you write you're going to give to Priest. You're going to, you know, but the record for the Priest was done creatively. So then I could dedicate all these ideas to the Weapons record, and things like Dead Man Walking, Do or Die. They were things that I came up with that I could dedicate completely to the Elegant Weapons record.
Okay, and talking about the song "Blind Leading Blind," there's a very sharp and remarkable chorus, great vocal melody. Uh, where do these vocal melodies come from?
I don't know. I mean, they come from, again, influences, really. I remember the Blind Leading the Blind when I came up with the melody for the chorus. And for me, the melodies come before everything. You know, I come up with a riff on the guitar first, and then the melodies jump out, and then lyrics get put to those melodies. I remember that melody on the chorus. I don't know where they come from, but obviously they come from the influences that influenced me. You know, Sabbath, Thin Lizzy. A lot of people have said it reminds them of Scorpions, but it's that kind of melodic hard rock that I was brought up on. So I think that's where it all comes from. That's what I told you at the beginning. That's who I am as a musician and as a guitar player, and that's the music that inspires me. So that's where all those ideas come from in my brain. You know.
Okay, you said about the hard rock, the melodic hard rock, but in my opinion, the following track, "Ghosts of You," has a black music accent. You know what I mean? I don't know exactly if it is blues or soul music, but of course it's mixed with classic rock and heavy metal. But it sounds to me like something like if Ronnie James Dio could meet Glenn Hughes. You know what I mean? Uh, what inspired you for this song?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I don't think too much about it. Like, you're right. You know, it's got elements of this and elements of that, and I tend not to think too much about it. It's obvious, as I said before, where it all comes from, and it's my influences. You know, but to me, if I'm working on an idea for a song and it sounds strong, I'll go with it, really. And it sounded different. You're right. There's bluesy elements in there. But to me, it just sounded different. It sounded strong, and there was a lot of imagery. I could see, you know, I could see like a smoky, bluesy jazz bar with like an old piano, and it's the theme of the
Yeah.
song is a universal theme as well. It's about lost love. You know, if we've lost a loved one or a relationship we're no longer in, and we see the person in our minds. You know, we're walking down the street and we think we see them down the street, but we don't. They're imprinted in our minds, and I think it's an experience that we all share. Yeah, and I just thought it was a strong song, a strong message, but I don't really think about at the time this sounds like this or sounds like that. It's only after the fact, and I think people listening to it as well, they have different perceptions about how it sounds, and that's really interesting to me. Like different people can have different interpretations of it, and I think that's a beautiful thing. But so yeah, I don't really know where it comes from, but if it's strong, I'll go with it. That's usually what happens.
Okay, and you said about Black Sabbath, and we can realize two or three songs with remarkable inspirations by Black Sabbath. I can say, for example, talking about, for example, Bitter Pill and Dirty Pig, two songs with remarkable inspirations by Black Sabbath. And Richie, I'm gonna ask you: is it impossible to play heavy metal and not go through Black Sabbath? And I ask the same question about Judas Priest. It's not possible to play heavy metal and not go through Judas Priest.
That's a good question. I've never thought about that. You have to go through that sort of, yeah. I don't know. That's a really good question. It seems to be the case. I think you might be right. You know, you have to go through that for it to be heavy metal. I don't have the answer, but I think it's a strong possibility that you could be right there for sure. Because for me, anyway, it always ends up sounding like Black Sabbath or Judas Priest. You know, for sure, you might be right.
And who invented heavy metal? Is it possible to say if it's Black Sabbath or Judas Priest?
I think this has been answered before. I think did someone say that Black Sabbath invented heavy metal and Judas Priest refined it? Something like that. I think that's a good way of putting it. I think, but you know, Black Sabbath they grew from something as well. You know, there's elements of heavy metal in Deep Purple and you know, Uriah Heep, and there's elements of, you know, the heavy metal attitude maybe in Hendrix. You know, the loud upfront guitar, that's an element of heavy metal. Not other ones in Hendrix's playing, but there's certainly some of them. So, but I do think heavy metal as we know it, I mean, Speed King, Burn, you know, that sort of stuff, that's Purple, that's, you know, there's Rainbow stuff, there's elements of, you know, Kill the King, that's a metal song if ever I heard one, you know. But I think someone said it best when they said Sabbath invented heavy metal and Priest refined it. I think that's a good way of putting it.
And I think that the main element of designing this kind of heavy metal, as we know nowadays, is the twin guitars. Yeah, the twin guitars from Judas Priest.
That's definitely an element of it. You know, obviously in Elegant Weapons we've only got one guitar. In bands like Pantera, they only had one guitar, and that was full on heavy metal. You know, so it depends really. I think you can have one guitar; it doesn't have to be two. But that's definitely an element that Priest brought to the metal side of things. You had bands like Thin Lizzy and Wishbone Ash before that that weren't heavy metal, but I think Priest brought that twin guitar element to the metal sound for sure.
And I think that Iron Maiden took this element to a new level at the 80s. You know, did you agree?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it was. I think Maiden did what Priest and Lizzy were doing, and they took it somewhere else. Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of similarities with what those bands. I'm sure all those bands were influenced by Lizzy and Wishbone Ash and things like that. So they took those influences and ran with them as well, for sure.
And still talking about your influences, you paid tribute to one of your guitar heroes, Michael Schenker, by recording Lights Out of the UFO. Any special reason for choosing this specific song?
Well, yeah, you're right. I'm a huge Michael Schenker fan, a massive UFO fan, and I was toying around with the idea of including a cover on the record, and I had a couple of ideas, and this one just seemed to fit the flow of the record appropriately. You know, it had the right tempo for that point of the record. It had the right dynamic, I think, for that point of the record. And you know, with the cover, you have to change it a little bit, but you have to still be faithful to the original. And I think we got the balance right. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think we got the balance right. So yeah, we went with it. But ultimately, I'm just a fan of UFO and Michael Schenker, so we went with that one.
And I like it so much. The keyboards in the song "White Horse." Is it inspired by John Lord and Uriah Heep stuff? Who's that?
Yeah, it's just a sound that fits that kind of experience, that kind of distorted rotary speaker Hammond type keyboard seems to fit that experience. You know, it seems to fit well. You know, it. You know, like on Lights Out, it's the same kind of sound. And I include it's on a few songs on the record, that B3 Hammond sound. So yeah, it's just something. Sometimes you write something on a different instrument and it inspires a whole song. You know, if you get creative block on the guitar, you can't think of any riffs or anything. If you play a different instrument, it inspires something from a completely different place, which can then help you with the guitar. So that's what happened with that song. You know, it opened up a completely different texture, which then helped create a different song.
Okay, Rich. And talking just a little bit about Judas Priest, as we talked in the beginning of the interview, um, let me tell you, I made a series of videos about the entire discography of Judas Priest.
Yeah.
And when I talked and when I researched and talked about Redeemer of Souls, I knew that Rob Halford was very, very kind to you in his bio in this book. He said that Judas Priest guys decided to reconsider retirement after you joined the band. How did you feel when you know that you are the guy?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons that keep Priest, in this case, going. I think a lot of it is their passion for what they do. A lot of it is the commitment and the support of the fans around the world. You know, and you can see, I've been in, I've experienced it. You know, we went on the Epitaph tour back in 2011, 2012, and it fires you up. You know, you get excited to go in the studio and write another record, you know, for them. So we wrote Redeemer of Souls, and then you get excited to take that out on the road as well. So then you go out on the road with Redeemer of Souls, and then that makes you excited to go in the studio again, and then you go and do Firepower, and then you get excited to go out on the road again. So you can see how the cycle continues. Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of components to why a band continues for over 50 years. It's the passion for what they do. It's the passion of the fans and the love the fans have for the band and all of that stuff. And you know, I've said it a million times, but I'm just happy to be a part of that. Happy, grateful, and fortunate to be a part of the Priest for the last 12 years, and happy to contribute, and just happy to be a part of it. So, you know, did I have a part to play in it? Sure, but we're all playing a part in it, as well as the fans that drive us, that give us the drive to make that commitment to making something better, and you know, better than the last record or better than the last tour. That it's the fans that inspire that in all of us, and they've been inspiring that for over 50 years. So that's the way I think it happens, you know.
Okay, and how better how better Judas Priest will can get on the next record. Can you tell us something about the next Judas Priest record?
It's always tough. It's hard to. It's better. It's a subjective word, you know. So better to me might not be better for you, you know. But we've got to
Okay.
do what we think is better, as creative as because we're creating it. So we've got to make something that we feel is a better song, a better production, a better performance, a better album. Uh, However subjective that might be, that's what the challenge is. And because Firepower connected so well with so many people, it set the bar really high. So that's a good challenge. You know, you've got to meet that challenge and hopefully surpass it. So because of that, we think it's sounding great. We think we've achieved that. We think it's sounding, you know, it's going to be a tough one, but you know, because Firepower connected so well. But we think we've achieved it, and we can't wait to show you guys and girls the new record. There's another Priest record on the horizon. It's an exciting thing, and we can't wait to see what you guys and girls hear. Is it better? That's for you to decide, but we think it is. So it's going to be exciting.
And I have to admit that I like it so much. I like it so much, Redeemer of Souls 2. I like it so much. I think that is a great album with a little bit of problems in terms of production, but for me, in my opinion, as a great Judas Priest fan, it's a great album. And talking about the Elegant Weapons again, what are your expectations, Rich, regarding the future of the band?
Well, you know, my priority is to have a band that grows and evolves with each other and with the fans that we hopefully pick up along the way. You know, I want to get out on stage and play live, and you know, in front of people and connect with the fans. That to me, that's what being in a band is all about: growing, evolving creatively, and with the fans. So we are leaving for Europe next month. We've got some dates opening for Pantera, and we've got some festival shows around Europe. So we're really excited about that because again, it enables us to play to fans and hopefully introduce our music to new fans and grow as a band. And hopefully we can get over to South America at some point. Hopefully we can get down to Brazil and play for you guys and girls down there as well, because we know how passionate you guys are down there. So that's what I'm looking forward to. You know, being creative, playing live, growing, evolving as a band, and letting those characters in the band shine through and grow in the band. You know, that's what it's all about for me.
Great, Rich. I really hope to see you in Brazil with Elegant Weapons, with Judas Priest, as soon as possible. And thanks for your time. Thank you so much for your time. Please send a message to your Brazilian fans.
Well, thank you from me for the support you've given me and Priest over the years. We hope to see you very soon, either with Elegant Weapons and or Judas Priest. We can't wait to see you very soon. Hopefully it's not too long. Looking forward to it. Muito obrigado.
Great. De nada, de nada. Thanks a lot. And Elegant Weapons, Horns for the Halo, a great album coming out. And see ya, Rich Faulkner. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Take care. See you soon.
See you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye bye.